Guys, before we start, two things. Hey, Simcha. As usual, Ethan, it is great to see all the alumni. I'm not going to list them by name because there are too many. And secondly, I just want to give a thank you to, I don't know if you've noticed, but Orayta has been working hard on videotaping Shiurim. So Ari and Yoni Birmingham get credit. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Orayta now has its own YouTube page. Are you guys aware of this? So if you go to the Orayta YouTube page, you could watch panels and Shiur Klali and things like that. So take a look. Take a look at the Orayta YouTube page. Okay? All right, here we go. So I always like it when we're able to find some deeper meaning in details. That the details are not just arbitrary. It would be very hard for me if halakha would have arbitrary details. So I sometimes like to take something that seems very technical and see why it might not be technical. So what we're going to discuss today is additions to davening. Things like Hanissim and Veyavo. You might think they're not so exciting, but I think there are two questions we could ask about them that will add excitement. One question we could ask is placement, location, like why are they placed where they are. And the second thing we can ask about them is significance. And one way of measuring significance would be, well, if you forget them, do we make you go back? And why would that be? Okay, so I think that's a way to kind of get a little more out of it. So let's just start with a couple of examples of location. When you see it was not arbitrary at all. Does Al Hanissim appear where it belongs in both davening and benching? And who could tell me, well, the answer is going to be yes, but who could tell me why? Okay, why does Al Hanissim fit perfectly? Okay, Jack, what do you say? Yes. The theme of certain brachot are Thanksgiving, and Al Hanissim is all Thanksgiving. In fact, I often find, I was just thinking about this morning on the way in, like sometimes when we have Thanksgiving, we sneak in a request at the end. Do you ever notice that about Hallel? I always wondered about that, right? Hallel seems very much about praise and gratitude. What happens towards the end? Ana Hashem Moshiach. Oh, let's sneak a request in at the end there. We can't get by without a request. Okay, but what would you say, guys? How many requests are there in Al Hanissim? 0. There is no theme of request. It is pure Thanksgiving. So it should be in the bracha about Thanksgiving. So let's just think for 1 second, guys. In the Amidah, does this work? Yes, there is one bracha in Amidah that is the Thanksgiving bracha, Modim. It's in Modim. Okay, terrific. What about its placement in benching? Well, notice how the bracha starts, where it's placed. What are the first two words? No delacha. Now, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but you could ask this about benching too. Where does benching have requests? Very good. So you guys are the thoughtful people, right? The third bracha begins with Rachemna, so it's already in request mode, right? Where the second bracha, I believe, has no request whatsoever. So it fits very well. We put Al Hanissim where there's a pure Thanksgiving theme. Okay, everyone good with that? Okay, terrific. What about Veyavo? What's the logic over there? Well, let's ask the question. Why does Veyavo not go in Thanksgiving? I mean, aren't we grateful on Yom Tov? It's really a misleading question. The fact that we're grateful on Yom Tov doesn't mean that Veyavo expresses Thanksgiving. Again, just think about the beginning words. What are Veyavo? It's a request. This is what we would like to happen, right? So it makes more sense that it would not be in Thanksgiving theme. It's in a more request-based part of our ritual. Okay, last one, which is not relevant to my shiur, it's just my favorite one. Where do we sneak Atachan and Tanu in? Where do we sneak Havdalah into which bracha? Atachonin ladam dat. The Gemara has two reasons, and they're both very good. Can anyone tell me two reasons why, or even one? What's the logic of putting Havdalah into that particular bracha? Okay, Josiah.
It takes knowledge. It takes.
Okay, excellent.
Between two things, especially between Kodesh and Kol.
Okay, terrific. So before I get to Josiah's answer, I'm just going to say, if you guys don't know him, he's Josiah Pinto. He's in Maryland. If you're thinking about going to Maryland, you should speak to him. One of the great perks you'll discover is that Maryland's winter break lasts for eternity. Okay, speak to Josiah Pinto about Maryland winter break. Okay, is that true? You guys have the longest winter break of any university?
Yes.
Okay, there you go. What?
At least, the kids don't.
I think it's a running pattern. Okay, so you should either go to Maryland or you should become a professor at Maryland, and then you'll have a lot of vacation days. Okay, so in any case, but Josiah gave a good answer, which is one of the Gemara's answers, right? Maybe a crucial part of knowledge is the ability to make distinctions. A lot of things we analyze, and that's the point. Oh, they seem similar but not the same. Shabbos is not like Yom Tov, right? Esav is not like Yishmael, right? We have to see the differences. That's part of understanding the world. So what better place for Havdalah than in a bracha about knowledge and about dot? Does anyone know a second reason? Okay, Cuz, what do you say?
It's the first bracha that's regular like the week.
Ah, terrific. That is the Gemara's second answer. Okay, that... okay, did you make him this week, Norm?
I didn't make this.
Okay, Jacob Joseph, you made it? Okay, excellent. Looking forward to see what happens there. But I have to try to be natural so I don't skew the results. Okay. Okay. Now it's like a problem. Like if I call an Evan Shraga, do I decide to call him his nickname? Do I not call him his nickname?
I wouldn't worry about that one.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay. So in any case, so maybe it's not about the content of the bracha per se, it's about where it is. Notice that on Shabbos, we don't say the middle part of the Amidah. It sounds like we don't really think requests belong on Shabbat. Shabbat is about tranquility, not about what I need. You get back to Chol, you have requests. So maybe, what's the best time to do Havdalah? When you get back to that part of the Amidah, that is a Chol-like Amidah, not a Shabbat-like Amidah. So again, guys, so that I think is really interesting. Again, two answers. Okay, RT, everything okay?
Yes, right.
Is the sound not working?
I just want to double check what this is going. Yeah, so good.
Okay. Again, two answers, either because to make distinctions you need knowledge, or because it's not about knowledge per se, but it's about the first Chol bracha. Okay, great. So that is in terms of placement. But what about in terms of significance? So let's start with the Gemara in Shabbat. Guys, remember all the Chanukah sugyas are in Shabbat? Okay, here we go. Ibailu, this is a crucial word, guys. See, even in Shir I like to teach word skills. Okay, how does Ibailu differ from the following three questions? From Matkifla, Meitvei, and Urminu. Why is Ibailu a different kind of question altogether? Roi Wegline. Wait, where's your brother? He was so great last week.
I thought it might have to do with the source that they're using to bring the attack.
But you made a big assumption. Okay, Roi is this Choni B.
Today is a challenge from higher source.
Okay.
Maki is a challenge.
Okay. But what's the commonality of all three as opposed to Ibailu?
Those are contradictions.
Okay. Guys, Ro'i assume makes sense. Talmud is so much intellectual jousting. We think every question must be an attack on somebody. Guys, sometimes you ask a question like, not because you're attacking anybody. It's just because you want to know the answer. Okay, so I'm not going to get into what they all are, but Mat, Kifla, or Minu, and Meitvei are all, in one way or another, a problem. There is a challenge. There is an attack. What is Ibailu? We just want to know the answer. Right? Okay, like you might say, do we say Hanissim in benching? Who's under attack? No, nobody's under attack. We just want to know the answer. Okay, here we go. Now, what are the two sides? Kivin to Rabbanu lo mad karinan. One more language thing, guys. We are very familiar with the shin tough rule, right? That shins in Hebrew tend to become T sounds in Aramaic. Does anyone know what happens, what gets replaced with dalids in Aramaic? Very good, you guys are really knowledgeable. Right, Zions in Hebrew tend to become dalids in Aramaic. So, does anyone know how to say gold in Aramaic? Okay, now remember you also often have an aleph at the end, so it is dahava. So zahav becomes dahava. So here, mad karinan is maz karinan, to mention. So kim de rabbanu lo maz karinan. Maybe it doesn't rate, it's only the rabbanan. O dilma mishum persuminisa mad karinan. Or maybe it's even because of persuminisa. So we're not sure about Hanukkah's status. Is it significant enough to receive mention in benching? Amarav Schol Ravuna Enu Maskir. No, you don't. Now again, Enu Maskir is misleading because it sounds like you shouldn't. We'll see in a second. It really just means you don't have to. Vimbala Skir, but if you do mention it, Maskir Behoda. As we said, what's the right place for it? The right before it says the second bracha benching, no delacha. Okay, good. So it sounds like we're not so adamant about Hanissim. And notice what happens when you forget Hanissim in benching. Do you have to go back or not? You don't, because it's really not so significant. Okay, great. Now, one other point here before we move on. The Gemara did not raise the question about tefillah. So it almost seems, and none of Rishonim point this out, that we're sure it should be in Amidah. We're just not sure if it should be in Birkat HaMazon. Does anyone make a suggestion why it more naturally becomes part of Amidah than Birkat HaMazon? Assuming that's true. Again, this is an inference, it's not explicit. But the Gemara raised the question of its place in Birkat Hamazon. Didn't raise the question, does it deserve a place in the Amidah? Does anyone think a reason why the Amidah is more natural? Elliot Rogel is becoming a major force in Shiur Klali these days.
I guess I could say that there's no mitzvah of Suda, so then the whole thing about benching.
Okay, terrific. So Elliot suggests that as much as we might love Hanukkah food, we might love, latkes and sufganiyot, at the end of the day, there really isn't the mitzvah su'udah, right? There isn't some formal idea of having a festive meal. And at that point, the whole idea of meals and Hanukkah are really not so connected and significant. Yeah.
The reason for during the Amidah is that you say Hallel, you read a special Torah portion, like there's something about it.
Okay, Elliot, very good. Anybody else with a suggestion? Quincy.
I just want to ask, so therefore, does it apply to Purim when we do have a Suda mitzvah? You have to go back?
That is a very good question. Okay, which I'm going to duck for now. Mostly because I can't remember the answer. Okay, wait, remember that, guys. If I duck a question, it's either because we don't have time or because I don't know the answer. Okay, there are two possibilities. Okay, Simcha. Terrific. Okay, guys, I don't know if you know him, but Simcha Molina is in Johns Hopkins. Is anyone going to Hopkins this year? Anyone for Shanaf going to Hopkins? Oh, forget it. He's not in Hopkins. Okay. But I will say one thing. If Simcha dropped out, it was not because he could not handle it academically. Okay? That was not the reason. Okay. All right, so What? Bingo. Already? I didn't say anything yet. Let's hear. What are your 5 boxes? Let's go.
I'm going to duck that.
Okay.
Mentions bingo. Welcomes alumni. Hebrew grammar point and cuz.
All right. I actually think it counts. I think it counts. Right, you killed the drama. It's only 12:16. Okay. All right. Hey, anybody wants, you can still keep playing. It's okay. Okay. So. In any case, let's look at the two answers inside. Okay, so there's Rashi and Tosfos. Let's go out of order. Let's do Tosfos first, because Tosfos is what Simcha says. So Tosfos says, source 3, Ma'al haskir shel Chanukah b'Birkat Hamazon, b'tfila pshita le'dam haskir. Tefillah was obvious. Mishum de tefillah b'tziburhu. There's something much more communal about davening. Right, again, not that everybody eats in solitude, but you tend to not have a minyan for eating. Okay, and why does that matter? Simcha's point. The Ikka Persume Nisa. Again, a recurring theme in Hanukkah is how much you want to publicize. Obviously, publicizing depends on the size of the audience. So Tefillah is a more natural place for Persume Nisa than Birkat Hamazon. That's the claim. That's why in Tefillah it was obvious. Okay, if we just go to Rashi for 1 second, in source 2, Birkat Hamazon, B'Tefillah Pshitalan, Shar Lahalel Ulhoda Nikbu. Interesting, very, very different approach. What is his claim? Well, it says in the Gemara that Hanukkah was established to be a source of praise and thanksgiving. And apparently the essential place for verbal expression in Judaism is not benching, but davening, but tefillah. So again, either tefillah is more natural because of the Halodah theme, or what I'm a bigger fan of, what Simcha said in Tosfot, it's the tzibur theme that creates a greater Persume Nisa. You did, yeah?
Could you say that Birkat Hamazon seems to be a lot more of an explicit Orayta mitzvah, and therefore they have a lot less leeway versus tefillah?
You're saying insertions.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thought. But how come we're not so hesitant about Veyavo? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just thinking out loud here. But
I was thinking actually before when you talked about the Malcolm, I was thinking maybe it's in Rich said because of the fact that it's maybe dubbing for the korban for the.
Yeah, Veyavo fits beautifully.
Yeah,
yes.
So maybe it's to ask for a mitzvah itself also.
Okay, so I was going to point out, you need to make 2 clever points, but I'm going to focus on the second one, which is, I said Veyavo was a request, it goes in the request bracha of the Amidah, but it's deeper than that, right? Veyavo is about requesting the return of the sacrificial order. So therefore, let's say in benching, where does it belong? Certainly a bracha that ends with Uvnei Yerushalayim fits with Veyavo. So I think the thematic placements are pretty on the money. Okay, well done, you did, yeah. Okay, Eitan GS, what do you say? Oh, we're going to get to that in a second. What was questions? Okay, Eitan, very good. See, you have support in life, you did here. All right, Quincy, only 3 comments per shirkol, okay? This is number 2. What? No, it's for everybody. Even the Shana Chet guys can only make three comments. Okay?
Then I'll save it.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay. very, very wise, Quincy.
Does that count as comment number 2?
No. But Raymond, for you, that's one no. Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's deal with the question that Eitan really raised, which is what's the status of Rosh Chodesh? Okay, so everyone look at source 4. And as I told you guys, I think last week I discussed it. I find Rosh Chodesh really intriguing because most of us, again, unless you're of Noam Himmelstein, who was the guy who wears white shirts every time? Who was it? Sammy? No, wasn't there one guy in yeshiva? Who was it? No, but there was one guy. That's true. YG does wear white shirts every Rosh Chodesh. It's true. Okay, but in any case, so how serious is Rosh Chodesh? So here we go. Oh, we discussed whether Hanukkah should be mentioned. Should Rosh Chodesh be mentioned? Yes, here you are. Rosh Chodesh, it's even your point exactly in the Gemara. Rosh Chodesh the right to tzarech. Maybe we should say Rosh Chodesh has a much bigger need, because it's more serious. It's a Orayta thing. Again, whether you like Rosh Chodesh or not, it's in the Chumash, right? Keep Rosh Chodesh. O Dilma kivin delo aser basiat malaka lomas karinan. What's the other possibility? Of course. How do you know Rosh Chodesh doesn't really rate? No Isser Malacha. How do you know when a day is really holy if you can't do Malacha? So Pesach, Shabbos, Sukkot, those are days of status. Rosh Chodesh, you're just going to work the regular way. It's not a day of status. That's the Gemara's question. The Gemara ends up concluding, so let's skip down to a Orayta. The Tani Rav Oshai in the 4th line. Now this Orayta is going to have a lot of implications, but we're going to do a brief tangent and then get back to Rosh Chodesh. Yamim sheish b'hem karban musaf. Kigon Rosh Chodesh v'chol shel moed. What's their Arvid v'shach l'minchol midpal shmon esrei v'omer me'ein ha'ma'ora ba'avodah. Guys, me'ein ha'ma'ora means something relevant to the event, relevant to the day, namely Veyavo. So in all those days, you say Veyavo and Rosh Chodesh and Chol HaMoed. Vim lo amar, and if you didn't say it, machzirin oto. So here it really matters. You forget it, you have to go back. Ve'ein ben kedusha alakos, but there's no kiddush. Ve'yesh ben haskah birkat hamazon, and they also get mentioned in benching. Okay, what's the contrast to that? Yamim she'ein ben karban musaf, kagon sheni v'chamishi v'tani rumamadot, sheni v'chish ma'avitayol, sheni v'chamishi v'sheni shel tani rumamadot. What about a tanit? Let's say, a sarbat tevit. What status does it have? Arvid v'shachrit u'mincha midpal shmon esrei, v'omer me'ein ha'ma'ora b'shomei tefillah. Notice what we say? You do refer to the event in Shomei Tefillah. Of course, not with the Veyavo, but with Anenu. Now, you might have noticed, especially Ashkenazim in the room, that is not our practice. When do Ashkenazim on fast days start saying Anenu? Only at, who said it? Only at Mincha, double-jointed Alex Wolf. Very good. Okay, oh my God. Jacob, how come you put that in everybody's card?
It's on everybody's card, actually.
Okay, look at Itay Yeshiva's crossing off an X. Okay. So, in any case, he is correct. We only start Mincha. We'll get to why in a second. Okay, fine. Ve'ein ben kedusha alakos, ve'ein ben haskar birkat hamazon. This is quite interesting. What are we saying? We don't mention the day in birkat hamazon on a fast day. You might also say to me, of course we don't mention it because you're fasting. Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute. Now we see a very interesting debate that plays out, I think, in an Ashkenazi-Sephardi split. Okay, look at Tosfot. There's a famous Tosfot that changes the trajectory of halachic history here. What does it sound like in the Gemara? I should say Anenu at every tefillah on a fast day. Here we go. It says Tosfot, Mashapir shagodim she'enu regim la'omra, Arvit. We don't say it at Arvit. Vafilu shachrit. We don't even say it in the morning. Shema ye'erelo ones choli o bulmus. That's one of my kids. That's my kid's favorite Aramaic word, bulmus. Okay, but what might happen to you? You might get some kind of illness, and if you become ill on the morning of the fast, you will not eat. V'nimtza shakran b'tfilato. So what's the claim, guys? Why don't Ashkenazim say Anenu at Shachris? We're not confident yet they're going to make it through the fast, right? Think about the words. Anenu biyom tzom tani tenu. But if you don't fast, it turns out you lied to God. Okay? Now again, I'm not saying it's obvious svara, but this is what the Gonim thought. And therefore, presumably what happens, you get to Mincha at that point? You're pretty confident you're going to make it when you met the Mincha. Now you might ask me, but the Shliach Tzibur already says it at Shachris. So Tosfos continues. Umash Shliach Tzibur Pala Shachrit Hanulami Lefi She'i Efshar Shelo Yitane Echad Mehem. So that's easy. Why is the Shliach Tzibur able to say it? He's not saying it qua individual. He is saying it as Jacob Joseph. Next week, put qua on the sheet, okay? Okay, but he is saying it as the tzibur. So someone in the community is going to fast, right? He doesn't have to worry even if he gets sick in the afternoon. Okay, so that is the standard Ashkenazi position. Individuals don't say it till mincha because they're not confident, and the shliach tzibur is able to say it already at shachrit. Now, I want to make one point, especially all the Sephardim in the room. One could easily argue, okay, even if I got sick and had to break my fast, that doesn't change what the day was. It still was a day in its essence of fasting. It's not obvious you're a liar if you refer to it as Yom Tzom Tani Teinu. So I believe the Sephardim do not accept this, but I thought it was even stronger. So that's why I checked with Raymond. But Arl Zagi, you could help us also.
I was just going to ask, what's it called? What do you do as an Ashkenaz if you're not fasting?
Oh, yeah, you don't say Aninu. You do not say Aninu. Yeah, if for health reasons you're not fasting, you don't say Aninu. Okay, 1 second, Eitan. So if you look in the Sephardi Siddur that Raymond has, the Syrian Brooklyn Siddur, you will discover that they say Aninu at Shachrit. So I thought even, here's what things are really interesting, guys. 1 second, I'm sorry. I thought they might even say it at Arvit. Now, why would that be more interesting, guys? If you say it at Arvit? Because you're not even, in many fast days, that's interesting. Okay, that's great. Okay, because in many fast days, you're not even fasting yet. Right? Remember, most of our fast days, with the exception of Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, start in the morning. So that would be the most interesting shita to me, that you're saying Anenu because it is the calendar date of the 17th of Tammuz, even though you are not yet in fasting mode. Okay, so I'd love to, I do think I have found that shita, but apparently it's not your practice. So those what Raymond does, it's very interesting. So on Tisha B'Av, they do say Anenu and Marv. Why? Because they are fasting. So they're willing to say Anenu if they're fasting. But in Tzom Gedalia and Shavas B'Tammuz, then they wait for Shacharit. But Raymond is great. It's another, I can add it to my theory of difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Would you guys agree that Ashkenazim are much more uptight and Sephardim are more relaxed in life? You guys agree? Is that a fair stereotype or no? No? You don't think so? No, okay. Moises, I know I shouldn't do this on the video, but your mother doesn't count, okay? Okay, so that's true. Actually, your mom supports my theory. His mom's Ashkenaz. I forgot that. Okay, but so this would be a good example. Ashkenazim are in the panic. What if you end up getting sick and Anenu's going to be a lie? Sephardim say, cut it out. Don't be like so. Stop with all that extra anxiety. It's going to be okay. Yeah, Raymond.
If you take apart like the part of it that doesn't actually make any sense that like you might get sick. If you're
that's a little strong, Raymond.
If you're davening Milcha Gedola, is there such a difference if you're davening at a 9 o'clock minyan or at a 12:50 minyan? Like the logic doesn't seem to make so much sense.
Okay, the truth is I think it could be defended, but I'm not going to fight about it right now. Okay, Amidah Keter.
We say the Amidah Ashkenazi and Sephardim about B'chal where Ashkenazi say.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, Amitai has a counter to my argument about.
Bingo.
Okay. Oh, because I said Amitai Keter. Okay. How do you make it on every week, Amitai? Okay. See, Jacob Joseph, you're biased in favor of like Dutch students. Okay. Okay. So in any case. He is right, actually. Sephardim are much more nervous about bracha levatala than Ashkenazim. So maybe that disproves my anxiety theory. Because remember, guys, what's the split? Ashkenazim are willing to make a bracha even when you're not chayav. And Sephardim say you can only make a bracha if you are chayav. Okay, everyone should know this. Eitan, give me a second. Give me 2 examples of that split. 2 kinds of cases where Ashkenazim will make a bracha and Sephardim will not. Gabi.
Women lulav?
Yes, women in mitzvah says man grama, like women in a lulav or women with a sukkah. And give me a male one, Zebi. Yes, male halal on Rosh Chodesh. Because remember, guys, halal on Rosh Chodesh is a minog. It is not really a chiyuv. So even a man is in the same scenario. So notice I've said this. Let's say Raymond is the best chazan around, but it might be a question if he's going to be the chazan in yeshiva for halal on Rosh Chodesh, because he'll turn to us and say, but I don't say a bracha. Don't you want the chazan to be somebody who says a bracha? Okay, excellent. Eitan. Yeah, sorry. Zachariah, wait a second.
The reasoning that they
wouldn't say Aninu at Shachrit is because they're worried that they might have to break the fast because of medical reasons, right? Not like, okay, I just decided to eat a piece of bread an hour later and now I fast.
Look, you could have such a case, but
Because
why not just go with the illness case?
But in the illness case, isn't there a thing that on, correct me if I'm wrong, on like Yom Kippur, people who like have to be eating something are supposed to say Yalav Yavo with their benching?
Look, you're raising an interesting question about Yalav Yavo, but we're focused primarily here on just the place of Anenu. So I'm going to leave Yalav Yavo out if that's okay.
But I'm saying if you're working on the assumption that someone is going to have to break the fast from a medical reasoning, then therefore it's an okay reason for them to break the fast. Therefore, it's fine if they say Anenu and then have to break an hour later because like they're feeling really things. Isn't it sort of no longer an issue if they have to break the fast an hour later if they're feeling faint?
I'm still missing. Why is it connected to the ability to say Yalav Yavo, though? That's what I don't understand.
I think because the Yalav Yavo is showing that there's it is okay for someone to be in having their value.
Right. Okay. Look, you could go with Raymond and say the Sephardi position makes more sense here. It shouldn't be such a problem. Okay. But those who go to WashU next year, there's another WashU fellow. Okay. Zechariah.
Wouldn't a better answer for why Ashkenazim don't say any new Shabbos is that it's sort of like at Shabbos, you're not supposed to eat or drink before Shabbos anyways on a normal day. So
Yeah, but the fact you're not eating doesn't make it a fast.
So at that point, Shabbos on a fast day, it's still a normal day. So
Oh, you're saying I haven't given expression yet to my...
it's still a normal day.
Okay, look, it's an interesting question, but what about those of us who have a cup of coffee before Shacharis? Okay.
But it's still encouraging like that. Yeah, that allows them like this.
Oh, wow. You guys are getting too frum. You guys are too frum. I don't view coffee as this radical kula. Just drink your coffee. Okay. All right, just because I'm curious. How many people in this room have a cup of coffee before Shacharis? All right, not so many actually. You're right. We're very from yeshiva. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If you have a cup of water, you're still in the same boat. Okay. What?
What about during Shacharis?
Okay, no.
No, I said I just come water.
Okay, fine. All right, here we go, guys. So let's turn the page. Okay, let's turn the page and get to some other interesting stuff. Okay, we haven't got that down. I know it was a bit of an aside, but it's an interesting aside. Again, Ashkenazi, Sephardi split. Do we worry about Anenu? Ashkenazim worry and only start at Mincha. Sephardim don't worry and start at Shachrit. And even in theory, started Arvit the night before. Okay, excellent. Okay, just curious, those who are Sephardi in the room, does anyone have a different practice than Raymond? Sephardim, anyone remember what their practice is on fast days? We don't have so many Sephardim in the room, actually.
My Shiur says only Moroccans do it after.
Only Moroccans do it at...
Bar.
There you go. Okay, that's what I wanted. Thank you, Yaakov Schumann. Luckily, Yaakov Schumann converted to the Sephardi heritage. Okay, excellent. Okay. No one's yet, Yaakov, by the way, no one's yet invented like a ritual to do that. Right? There's no like parallel to like going to the mikvah and a bunch of rabbis declare something. We don't really have a ritual yet. Okay, but that is interesting, right? Notice that? It sounds like Moroccans would say Anenu even when you're not fasting. They'll say, who cares? You're not fasting. It is. This day is Shavas B'Tammuz. This day is Asar B'Tevet. And therefore you say Anenu. Okay, but let's go back to Rosh Chodesh. What do we conclude about Rosh Chodesh, guys? That we are going to say it in benching. It's more significant than Al Hanissim. Okay, and again, I realize Al Hanissim we said also, but we just said it's more like an option to say Al Hanissim in benching. Okay, now let's get back to Rosh Chodesh and davening. Okay, look at this Gemara in Brachot. Very interesting Gemara, and when it sees, hopefully get it all in, because there's some great ideas here. Source 7. Amrav Anan Amarav, Tav lo hiskil Rosh Chodesh Arvit. If I didn't say Rosh Chodesh and Mariv, some of you may have heard this before, Ein Machzirin Oto. Right? You ever hear this? Very unusual. I think it's the only place you have this in halacha. There's a distinction in forgetting based on which tefillah it was. If you got Yalav Yavo on Shachris or Mincha on Rosh Chodesh, you go back and say it again. If you forgot it for Arvit, you do not. The $1,000,000 question is, what difference does it make? So it says, now I realize the best answer actually is not what the Gemara says. Someone just whispered it. Right? In fact, the Gemara should have said, because Arvit's a Reshut. Right? Who just whispered that? Okay, very good, Zachariah. Okay, he is right. That would have been a better answer. But there's a Tosfos about it, but that's not where the Gemara goes. Lefi she'ein beitin mekadshin et hachodesh ela b'yom. So we know in the old days when there wasn't a set calendar, beitin had would meet and do kiddush hachodesh, and apparently that was only done the daytime, not at night. Now the question is, how does that explain why Yalav Yavo is not so important at night? So one possibility, by the way, is it won't be Rosh Chodesh yet. Why won't it be Rosh Chodesh yet? Well, they need to declare the new moon. And if they don't do it at night, they'll usually do it on the actual day of Rosh Chodesh. Right? So it won't even become Rosh Chodesh till the morning. That would be so far? But now things get really interesting. If the reason is because it won't only become Rosh Chodesh till the morning, but that should mean, let's say, in a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, what should the din be? Was that your question, Simcha? Okay, sorry I beat you to it. Okay, shouldn't that mean that this halacha should only apply on the first day and not the second day? Okay, so we're going to see in a second if that's true or not. Okay, who else did end up besides Simcha's excellent question? Yehuda G.
If it's a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, this is on the second night, Yom Kippur, do you also go back?
That was Simcha's question just now. We're going to discuss it right now. Okay, because the logic would seem to be that you should have to go back for the second night. Okay, Choni.
What's the halacha if you purposely don't say Yom
Wow, only in Orayta. What is your ideological opposition to Veyavo? Okay, I'm saying, but why? No, I could see like all kinds of things in davening bother you. I don't know, women's issues bother you, or I don't know, revenge on the enemies bothers you. But what's the opposition to Veyavo? Oh, maybe actually it could be sacrificial order. That works actually. That does work actually. It's, at one point, you guys might know this is interesting in terms of Jewish history. When Reformed Judaism changed the liturgy, they took out all references to the return of the sacrificial order. They said, we are not looking forward to sacrifices coming back, so we will take it. So that's good. Coney, we got it. You're good guy. I'm willing to daven. I love everything, but no references to korbanot. So Veyavo's out. Okay. Yeah.
Wouldn't it actually make the most sense to be closer Veyavo at Marav because there is no Azar shot at Marav?
Okay, that was very clever. You're wondering, see, you guys ask great questions. I'm not going to really address it, but you're saying, why don't we just let, in a Mincha and Shachris case, the person not go back and just rely on the Shliach Tzibor? When in Arvit, you don't have that option. Very good question. Okay, so let's get to the question of the second night. So look at Tosfos and 8. Okay, Simcha and Yehuda asked a very good question. Ein mekatchen chodesh b'layla, vim tomar, leil shloshim ve'echad. What about leil shloshim ve'echad? The 31st night, namely that's the second night. Understand why, guys? Every month is either 29 days or 30 days. So the night of the 31st would be the second night. Okay. Okay, guys, realize one thing. He asked another question beyond Simcha's question, which is, guys, if it's not Rosh Chodesh the first day, do I need Edom at this point? No, because by default, it's Rosh Chodesh the second day. Right? You wouldn't have to wait for Edom to come to establish it as Rosh Chodesh. So the second night is always going to be Rosh Chodesh. So what does he say? I should have to go back. And tells a very unsatisfying answer. But this is kind of weak, because you're saying, even though the reason doesn't apply, we don't care. Again, we don't say Veyavo matters that much the first night, because it's not Rosh Chodesh yet. We're not doing Kiddush Chodesh at night. But we're somehow applying that svara to the second night as well, even though it doesn't really apply. Now, if you look in the Pnei Yehoshua, we'll just do the last line. Pnei Yehoshua takes on Tosfos, and he says, "V'imkein lefize vaday lo shayach haytama ella b'layla rishona." So at the end of the day, Tosfos, what's lo shayach? It's not relevant. It doesn't apply, right? It is not relevant. The reason is only on the first night and not on the second night. Okay, be good so far, guys? Okay, now comes the massive chiddush. Okay, now I'm debating what to do now, because there's a very interesting chiddush by Rav Zolti in source 10, and another interesting chiddush by Rav Soloveitchik in source 11. All right, guys, you know what we're going to do? We're going to rely on the modern Orthodox bias towards Rav Soloveitchik. Okay, Evan, go to source 11. Okay, maybe we'll have time for source 10 also, but we're not sure. Okay, so as many of you know, Rav Soloveitchik, there's a family tradition of being a huge perfectionist. And that means you don't publish that much when you're a perfectionist. But if any of you, let's try this for a second, guys. Anybody in the room here thinks that they are such a huge perfectionist? Okay, any perfectionists here? Okay, here we go. Okay. Gabi, are you a perfectionist?
I don't think so.
Okay, but everyone else seems to think you are. Okay, so let's...
You have to see his shelves. It's crazy.
Okay, that's true. He's a perfectionist when it comes to folding clothing. But I don't know if it spreads beyond that. Like, I don't know if the Rav was a perfectionist when it came to folding his shirts. I'm not sure about that. Okay, but in any case, I will give you a warning if you're a perfectionist and you're a famous thinker, which is, if you don't publish your ideas, somebody else will. So realize if you're reluctant to publish, right, in some ways you're relinquishing control to somebody else. So I don't say Rav Soloveitchik didn't publish anything in his lifetime, but in terms of like Gemara Shiur, not that much. It was more the philosophy. Like, he did publish Halachic Man in his lifetime and Lowly Man of Faith. So since he's died, he's become much more prolific. And one of the Rishim was a man named Rabbi Reichman. Rabbi Reichman has put out, those of you from Englewood might know his son, right? Correct? Okay. Does he come to visit his son a lot? Do you see him there? Oh, you guys don't have him there, right? Okay. But he's published some very nice svarim on Shas from his notes. Okay, so this is Rishimat Shiurim from the Rav Soloveitchik, is Rabbi Reichman's notes on Rav Soloveitchik's Shiur. Okay, now he's going to say something very powerful. Okay, here we go. Chalukim Rosh Chodesh. He's going to have a couple ideas, but the main idea is in the third paragraph. Chalukim Rosh Chodesh v'Chol Moed mehadadi. What's to be Chalukim? They are split. Okay, they might seem the same, Rosh Chodesh and Chol Moed. They both have Musaf. They both have 4 people get called up to the Torah, but they're not the same. The B'Chol Moed Chala Kedusha Yom Gemura Shel Yom Tov Ed Yesh Beheter Malacha. How should I think of Chol Moed? What kind of day is it? It's a holy day. Guess what? It's Yom Tov with leniency. The leniency is you can do a certain malacha. That's what Chol Moed is. Okay. El Yesh Beheter Malacha. Kedusha Yom Shel Yom Tov Mechayev Arba Dvarim. He gives through all the examples of what the Kedusha is. Okay, let's skip a little bit down to where Chol Moed is discussed. Okay. Where's Chol Moed? 1 second. Not Chol Moed, I mean Rosh Chodesh. Skip down to Venera. It's 4 lines from the end of the paragraph. Venera Deshani Rosh Chodesh Chol Moed Dechalod Kedusha Rosh Chodesh Eina Chala El Inyan Shemakivmo Karban Musaf Bilvad. Things are going to get interesting in 1 second here, guys. What does he claim? Chol Moed, we don't have a sense of sanctity pervading the whole day. What's the only expression of sanctity for Chol Moed? That you bring a Karban Musaf. That's it. Nothing else. Okay, therefore he says, V'lafika kol chalok kedusha in Rosh Chodesh ein el b'migdash shemaginu Karban Musaf v'lo b'gvulin to Rosh Chodesh b'gvulin have yom chol gamor. This is very interesting for me. Something I've been thinking about my whole life. How do we think of Rosh Chodesh? If the Rav is right, why do we get mixed messages about Rosh Chodesh? Because when is it a Yom Kadosh? Where is it a Yom Kadosh? In the Mikdash, right? To be Yom Kadosh, you have to have Kadosh expression. The Kadosh expression, you bring a Karban Musaf. But it turns out that if I am sitting in Riverdale, Zachariah, okay, and I'm very excited about Rosh Chodesh coming, nonetheless, what would the Rav say? It's just a regular day. Okay, so now we understand some of the back and forth, like only in the Mikdash world does Rosh Chodesh have special status. Absent the Mikdash, Rosh Chodesh is like any other Tuesday. Okay, that's number 1. And again, as opposed to Chol Moed. Gavi Teresh, you can't come, you're so tired today. Oh, okay, sorry to hear that. By the way, Jacob, I've also noticed now a new pattern is I pick on one tired guy every week. Okay, Oren, you're looking much more alert than last week. Okay, excellent. Okay, over to the second paragraph. Okay. I say one more thing, guys. I brought home some of the bingo sheets to show my wife. You know, she often protests if I go too far in making fun of the guys. So she was a little perturbed that one box said, embarrass one of the guys inadvertently. Okay, so Jacob, leave that out, okay? Okay.
We do have white reference. Because we had it.
Okay. There we go. Okay, second paragraph. V'od nira lomar. Now comes his real chiddush. That was also interesting that Chol Moed has more kedusha than Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh kedusha is limited to the Mikdash, but now comes an amazing idea. This is a famous chiddush of the Rav. V'od nira lomar the kedusha Rosh Chodesh modim chala de Yisrael. We create the kedusha. How does that work? Okay, so let's just think for a second. You're going to see an amazing chiddush of the Rav. Okay, there is an idea that Am Yisrael creates the kedusha of Yomim Tovim and Rosh Chodesh, but not Shabbos. What's the obvious logic of that? Why don't we create the kedusha of Shabbos? Well, take it or leave it every 7th day of Shabbos. We don't have to do anything. Why are we much more in control of kedushat Yom Tov? We decide what the Rosh Chodesh is, right? And every Yom Tov depends on the calendar date. Okay, great. So if I ask you what makes Rosh Chodesh 2,000 years ago, what's the answer? When the Beit Din declares Mekudesh. Okay, but now, what makes Rosh Chodesh today? So you could say that when the second Hillel Hasheni in the 400s, when he made the calendar, what else did he do? He created the sanctity for all of eternity. Can anyone see a possible alternative, which the Rav Soloveitchik is going to suggest here? What if Hillel did not do that? Hillel just created a calendar. He didn't create sanctity for eternity. Where would the Kedushas Rosh Chodesh come from? RL? Yes, but go even further. Not only will we announce the show, but when we say Yal Veyavo. Notice what's happening. Moshe, you going to say that? Yeah. Excellent, Moshe. Okay, what emerges that our saying Yal Veyavo is on Rosh Chodesh is different than every other Shmoneh Esrei edition. Every other Shmoneh Esrei edition is just adding the theme of the day. This is not just adding the theme of the day; it's an act of Kiddush HaChodesh. Now, if the Rav is right, let us go back to Gemara Brachot and Simcha's question, and then now you'll see why it's such a good Kiddush. Okay, what the Gemara Brachot say? We don't say you don't have to go back for Yal Veyavo at night because we don't do Kiddush HaChodesh at night. At this point, everyone agreed that the Svar is shifted. It doesn't mean because it won't be Rosh Chodesh yet. What is it really saying? One of the purposes of Yal Veyavo is to do an act of Kiddush HaChodesh, and guess what? At night, we don't do that act. And secondly, guys, how does it impact on Simcha and Yehuda's point about the second night? Once you say the Rav Svara, how many nights does it apply to? If the Rav is right. Every. Right? It has nothing to do with whether it's Rosh. Again, it's not about whether it's Rosh Chodesh or not. It has nothing to do with that. It's that Yal Veyavo is a way of declaring that it's Rosh Chodesh, and we simply don't do that at night. So we don't do that the first night or the second. Let me just do a brief summary, and I'll take Simcha's question. But this, I think, is a beautiful Chiddush of the Rav. Okay, again, what was the old reading? Since we're not Makadosh the Chodesh at night, it won't be Rosh Chodesh yet the first night, so we don't say Yal Veyavo. And then everyone asks the question, based on that logic, you should certainly need to repeat Yal Veyavo, repeat Shmoneh Esrei on the second night. Says Rav Soloveitchik, you never understood the reason. First of all, we have this beautiful idea that we are the Beit Din. We sanctify the new moon by saying it Yal Veyavo and davening. That's how we make it Rosh Chodesh. So that's already an interesting idea. Secondly, that's what the Gemara meant when it said you don't have to go back at night. But we do want you to say it, but if you miss it, it's not a big deal because we don't do Kiddush HaChodesh at night. Namely, Yal Veyavo is an act of Kiddush HaChodesh and it doesn't apply at night. Once that's true, again, there's no reason to differentiate between the first night and the second night. Simcha.
Yeah, it's like a very creative Svara, but why can't you just say that at night it's like similar to Spartan by Highness, right? So like the same way, even though you're Makadosh in the Yom, the same way like some fast we don't have during the day, like it still applies.
Okay, so guys, I think you've gotten a brief experience of Simcha as a Talmudic force. Okay, everyone go back to source 10 for a second. I'll just mention the other Chiddush, which I didn't have the chance to sneak in, but I've got 3 more minutes. Just before I say the last Chiddush, does anyone else have a question they want to ask? Everyone's okay? So guys, very quickly, okay, because I want to see one last Chiddush. Jeremy.
Does this apply to Rosh Hashanah? Because by there,
okay, Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh seems to be swallowed up. Yes?
Is it, now we've got this new mechanism of creating Kedusha, is it still a sort of deraisa, or does it move shape?
Okay, good question. Next, Max.
What happens if you actually say Yal Veyavo on a date in Rosh Chodesh?
Yeah, next. You did you.
If you're saying that to announce the Rosh Chodesh, wouldn't it make sense only to have to repeat it with the Chazan and saying it out loud? But if everyone's doing it individually, where you announce it?
Okay, I think Am Yisrael, even if no one hears it, Am Yisrael is collectively declaring what day this is. That's what I would say. Okay, very quickly, guys. Last Chiddush based on Simcha's point. So in source 10, remember the Daf al Daf is in the Daf Yomi, in the Bar Ilan program, and it quotes the fellow who was the Rav Rashi of Yerushalayim. There's a man named Rabbi Tzal Zolti, who was a huge Talmud Chacham. He has a very good Lumdish sefer called Mishnah Yavitz. If you like Lumdish, I highly recommend it. So he has a Chiddush that's along the lines of what Simcha said. So if you look at source 10, look what he says. It's really interesting, guys. Okay. You see what it says, Ella in the 5th line? Okay, Ella Muchach. Now we discussed before whether Rosh Chodesh has Kedusha or not. What do Rav Soloveitchik want to argue? It only has Kedusha in a Mikdash context, where you bring the Karban Musaf. Look at the other version here. Ela muchach te'ein klal din Kedusha Rosh Chodesh. Simcha, here you go, balayla. What's his distinction? It's not Mikdash versus outside of Mikdash. It is day versus night. She'ikar Kedusha Rosh Chodesh hua musaf. V'hashir shel Rosh Chodesh. V'dvarim elu einim nogin balayla. So this is quite fascinating, guys, because there are 2 great achronim here are taking the same halachic facts, but deriving different conclusions. What are the halachic facts? Rosh Chodesh just doesn't seem that different than other days. Its difference is manifest in the Korban Musaf. So Rav Soloveitchik looks at that and says, guess what? Where does Rosh Chodesh have real Kedusha? In the Mikdash, not outside the Mikdash. Rav Zolti looks at that, and what conclusion does he come to? Its Kedusha is limited to the daytime, not to the nighttime, which is a very interesting idea, that Kedusha doesn't have to be a 24-hour endeavor. And also, I think Simcha's right, wouldn't both of them lead to explaining the Gemara about why we don't go back when you forget Veyavo for Marav? Okay, obviously Rav Zolti does it in a very direct way. Okay, Josiah.
So if the Kedusha is only at Musaf, then why wouldn't we continue to say Tachanun, the mincha before the day?
No, Rav Zolti, okay, you're saying something even more clever, which is maybe it's only during the Musaf. He's saying Musaf reflects the entire daytime experience. All of the day has Kedusha Rosh Chodesh, within which I bring the Musaf.
But then if the night isn't Rosh Chodesh, then why would we still not say Tachanun, that mincha?
No, the night is really just Arvi, right? Where else does it manifest besides Arvi?
I'm saying if they're saying that the nighttime doesn't necessarily matter if you don't send it back, then why would we still have to say Tachanun?
You mean Tachanun? You mean Veyavo? What do you mean?
No, I'm talking about Tachanun the mincha before, the day before.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Look, you have to look into how that developed. How it developed in general. You don't say Tachanun, the mincha before a special day. Okay, you gave me good homework because I've never really looked where that came from. It'll be interesting to see where that comes from. Okay, Yaakov.
If we used to base Rosh Chodesh off of the moon, wouldn't it make a lot of sense to consider the nighttime Rosh Chodesh?
Okay, so that's a fascinating point. That despite the fact that you'd associate the moon with the nighttime, it turns out somehow that the day is more significant in the world of Rosh Chodesh. I mean, it's a clever point. It's not like a contradiction, but it is an interesting thing to notice. Okay, anybody else? All right, guys, everybody have a wonderful Shabbat here, and we'll pick it up next week.